Greetings, esteemed guests, respected faculty members, and my dear companions. I extend a warm welcome to you all on the third day of Conventus 2023, the annual management conclave of International Management Institute, New Delhi. This year, we have set sail under the theme, Embracing the Winds of Change, Strategies for Thriving in Disruptive Times. In a world marked by perpetual transformation, it's imperative that we stand at the forefront, ready to adapt, innovate, and evolve. Today, on Conventus, by its very name denotes a gathering of minds and ideas. We come together not only in person, but also in pursuit of a common goal, to engage with, learn about, and comprehend the field of business and management. My fellow compare, Kshitij Malhotra, and I, Astha Singh, shall take you through the Entrepreneurship Summit of Conventus 2023. This year, Conventus is centered on the theme RUPT, Rapid, Unpredictable, Profound, and Transformative. Without further ado, let's dive into the heart of our event's theme with this incredible video. Please direct your attention to the screen and let the journey begin.
The pages of history remind us of the reality that our world can swiftly change its course. Events like pandemics, economic shifts, and unexpected crises echo through the fabric of time. Like a ripple effect, the consequences of these events rapidly reshape the present, creating the perfect chance to gear up and pave the way for an unforeseen future. Adapting to the RUPT paradigm that signifies rapid, unpredictable, profound, and transformative is essential to tread the waters where constant change is the norm. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, businesses that skillfully surf such changing tides, using hurdles as stepping stones and transform challenges into opportunities, emerge triumphant. To learn from their success, we must reflect on their experiences and grasp what sets them apart.
We hope the introduction video has sparked your interest and set the tone for the remarkable journey we are about to embark upon today.
Today, we delve into the realm of the RUP paradigm: rapid, unpredictable, profound, and transformative. This paradigm serves as our compass in navigating the swift currents of our ever-changing world. It equips us with the tools to not only understand, but also adapt to the sudden shifts that define our era. In this age of rapid change, we find ourselves standing at the precipice of unprecedented transformations. The pace at which events unfold has left us all with a sense of unpredictability, making it imperative that we forge a new path forward. The decisions we make today will shape our ability to thrive in the face of the unforeseen challenges of tomorrow. Gone are the days when we could rely on traditional patterns of operation. The brittleness of old systems have been replaced with the need for nimbleness and adaptability. To navigate this environment, we must cultivate resilience in our endeavors, both within the world of business and in our personal lives. Empathy and mindfulness will be our guiding lights, soothing the anxious minds within our communities.
In this rapidly shifting landscape, reskilling becomes not just a choice, but a necessity. Flexibility is a cornerstone of survival, and businesses built on this principle are best prepared to flourish amidst the non-linearity of our present circumstances. Embracing transparency and intuition and discarding bureaucratic rigidity are keys to unraveling the profound and transformative nature of our current reality. As we embark on this journey through the RUPT environment, let us remember that our strategies for overcoming the pervasive challenges before us will not only define the scope of our success, but also leave an indelible mark on the legacy we leave behind.
It is a privilege and a distinct honor to introduce to you 5 eminent figures whose wealth of experience and invaluable insights have shaped successful startups and driven ventures to new heights. Mr. Jitendra Sharma, founder and CEO, Hair Originals. Mr. Nirmal NR, Mr. Nirmal N.R., CEO of three-wheeler business at Greaves Electric Mobility. Mr. Akash Sharma, co-founder and CEO of Family. Mr. Vishnu Acharya, Head of Corporate Development at Razorpay. Last but not the least, our moderator for the event, Mr. Sudhir Gandotra, founder, Best Book Buddies, and CEO, OpenLX Technologies. Before we begin the session, we would like Mr. Sudhir to felicitate our esteemed panel members. So, please do the honors. Mr. Jitendra Sharma. Jitendra Sharma, a 2008 graduate of IIT Delhi, embarked on an impressive journey after his graduation. He gained extensive international experience by working with the renowned oil and gas industry giant Total for over a decade, during which he had the opportunity to contribute his expertise in over 40 countries. In 2019, he took a bold step and founded the startup Hair Originals, specializing in the distribution of natural human hair extension and wigs. The venture quickly gained recognition as it was selected as one of the 67 funded startups at Shark Tank India, a remarkable achievement considering the staggering 50,000 applications received. We welcome you, sir.
Mr. Nirmal N.R. Nirmal N.R. is a seasoned entrepreneur leader with over 16 years of extensive experience. His track record shines in establishing and expanding businesses, crafting strategies, and driving goal-oriented implementations. His contribution to the success of startups, including Oyo, Zoomcar, and most recently Greaves Electric, speaks loudly about his ability to create market-leading businesses. Beyond his professional acumen, Mr. Nirmal N.R. is deeply passionate about fostering purpose-driven culture within organizations, recognizing their potential to achieve remarkable feats. He is also an advocate for kindness at work, believing in its long-term benefits for individuals and organizations alike. In his insightful TEDx talk on this subject is a testament to the commitment. We welcome you, sir.
Mr. Akash Sharma. Our next speaker is the true definition of an entrepreneur. Mr. Akash completed his mechanical engineering from IIT Delhi and was coincidentally, or by design, also part of the entrepreneurship cell of his alma mater. He is one of the co-founders and the CEO of Family, one of the most promising stories in the current Indian startup ecosystem. The company is all set to transform the dry fruits and the nuts market in India, having achieved a unique brand identity in a short span of its existence. They have most recently onboarded The Wall, Mr. Rahul Dravid, for an ad campaign which would definitely attract customers to put Family's products in their shopping list with Diwali coming around. We welcome you, sir.
Mr. Vishnu Acharya. Vishnu Acharya is the head of corporate development and investments at Razorpay, where he oversees corporate strategies, corporate development, acquisitions, and strategic investments. He brings valuable experience from his previous role as a startup founder. Mr. Vishnu is a trusted advisor to companies, offering insights and guidance on fundraising, investor management, and other critical aspects of corporate finance. His expertise empowers businesses to navigate the intricacies of financial landscapes and makes strategic decisions that drive growth and prosperity. We welcome you, sir. I would now like to request, please do the honors. I would now like to request our club mentor, Mr. Nalin Jain, to felicitate Mr. Sudhir Gandotra. We would like to welcome our moderator for the summit, Mr. Sudhir Gandotra, who is the founder of Best Book Buddies and CEO of OpenLX Technologies Private Limited. He has been actively involved in a humanist movement since the age of 20. This has enabled him to have the wonderful experience of understanding the issues deeply and coordinating with people to work for solutions that go beyond the individualistic purposes. Apart from being the humanist volunteer, he created OpenLX Linux, India's first open source Linux distribution that is free to download and use. He went to develop Calculate, world's first financial accounting on Linux. His current venture, Best Book Buddies, connects readers, educators, libraries, authors, and publishers with the librarians, playing a pivotal role of bridging the gaps and aims to re-establish the roles of libraries as a living source of knowledge. We welcome you, sir.
I would now request Mr. Sudhir to felicitate our professors, Mr. Nalin Jain and Mr. Digya Sharma. Constant waves of change are relentless and inevitable. To survive, it becomes imperative that we embrace them by constantly replacing and replenishing the antecedent with emerging advancements. Many lament the rupt era we are living in, but only the ones who adapt and evolve will make the cut. Technology has the power to upend an already established market and be known as disruptive innovation. Wavering expectations from all stakeholders fuel businesses to manage these demands effectively to accelerate satisfaction in the ecosystem. Similar to how new cultures and methods of working are being fostered, the workplace itself is changing. To be able to transform in accordance with these evolutions, businesses need to break away from traditions and adopt non-conventional business and talent models, marketing strategies, operational faculties, and product features. The amalgamation of the acronym RUPT, along with disruption, culminates the need and the importance of being ready to face unpredictability of events, being adaptive to changes, and essentially being transformative. The path ahead might be uncertain, but it is in the face of disruption that we uncover untapped potential and forge new paths to success. Let's dive deeper into our chosen theme by exploring it through a video.
Now, I would like to request Mr. Sudhir Gandotra to commence the panel discussion so the audience can enjoy the main event for which they have so enthusiastically turned up.
Good afternoon, friends. First of all, I must thank the institution for having organized this event. And I must warn you that depending on you, not us, this event could become a formality, or this event could become the starting point of disrupting and transforming your life very rapidly. We will speak what we will speak, but you could make us speak what you want to hear. So the first disruption of the day should be, let's disrupt the supposedly disciplined way of this event and have interactions as and when you want. And as the advantage of being a moderator, I take the liberty of allowing that. The introductions have been given. I will not introduce more because either you should have seen the introductions already on LinkedIn or you can see them later. None of us is here with the feeling of, they say in Hindi, mujhe lecture jor ka aaya hai, right? We are honored to be here, that we can share our experiences. But let's first go back to the initial words used here. I would connect this of changing world to a talk given by somebody in 70s, that the world will change and the speed of this change will go on increasing all the time. But this sentence was noticed broadly by the world only towards the end of 90s. And after the year 2000, everybody started saying the world is changing and it is changing very fast. Let's understand that the world is not just changing outside, it's changing within us. I don't know how many of you would believe that I have seen a world where the whole city was connected through an exchange, which was pre-era EPBX. So if I had to talk to him, I would pick up my phone. I'm talking of a city, and an operator will pick up, yes sir. So I would say, connect me to number 602. Then it would be dialed and I would speak. You are used to going on a shop and buying a phone and making it work in 3 minutes. When I said this to my son, he said, Papa, I have seen Star Wars and I've read the whole series. Don't go beyond that. The world has changed and is changing. This change broadly brings two kinds of reactions. Some are afraid. I don't know what will happen, not tomorrow, the next moment. Things are changing so fast. And some take it as a challenge. Good. There is change, so whatever failed in my past is over. I can do something new. I was not accepted, my points were not accepted, my idea was not accepted, it will be accepted now. I'm coming to the point that whatever happens in the world and what happens to me and all of you is we as a person, each one of us as a person, with a particular attitude that we face this world. So yes, some of you will get into a job or a startup soon and others will get up after a few months or a year or whatever. And you could go with one of these two attitudes or a mix of that attitude. Do your studies fine, do your courses fine, everything is fine. Try to work on that attitude. Because that attitude could develop fear in you, I don't know what will happen. Or could develop that adventure in you, because I don't know what can happen, I will see what happens and make it successful. This is your I, this is you, your confidence in yourself, first of all, that I can win, which will make the difference. I don't know if any management class teaches, a management book teaches that. But somewhere, I believe if nobody teaches you, sit down alone for 3 minutes, just 3 minutes. Reduce your noise and ask yourself this question: how should I face the world? Doing this would take you maybe 30 seconds. For the next 2.5 minutes, just wait for the answer. Whether you get it or not, don't worry, get onto your things and do it again the next day. You might get into a new world. With this, I will ask some questions to our friends. You can also ask the questions. But I will warn you, don't follow their success. Rather, try to get into their attitude. Because each one who is present here is a bundle of success and failures. And behind those success and failure is their attitude. How did they take that success to make it lasting, better, and growing? And how did they face their failure to learn from it So never to repeat the same failure again. If you fail 20 times a day, but each time your failure is different, you're already succeeding because you're trying something new. So with that, let's move on to Mr. Jitendra Sharma. Jitendra, what I would like, I've been given a list of questions and I'm not asking you any of them. My point is that here we have people who have experience in the enterprise. And here we have people who are willing to listen to us today as to what to do. Let's tell them what is the best that could be done. And how did you face the challenges? And what made you learn to overcome them? Or what was missing that you could not overcome, you learned later? And how did you convert things to success? And let's move towards that and then see where do we land up.
First of all, thank you. Maybe I think like this also. If you Sorry? It's okay. Okay. First of all, thank you for having us here. I think to go into this answer, maybe first, because I have done a corporate job life for good 11 years. Then I entered into entrepreneurship. In fact, I was just discussing, Akash is like junior of my college, 7 years or 6 years. So I felt a bit old, but okay. So coming, first of all, what I feel, as we have discussed about disruptions and all, one thing which is very important are good fundamentals. Whether it is your personality, your ethics, whatever, or if you are building up a company, whether your idea, your financials, everything, are they built on good fundamentals? I think that is something which never changes. We can say change is the only constant, but for this one, this is a change which never happens. So this is one very important aspect I have realized. Now, talking about, rather than, I would just want to share some of my experiences and things and what had made me to do that. Honestly speaking, I had not thought of where I am today. Just in the beginning, it was more like whatever life would throw at me, I'll try to find out. I never thought I would work outside. I always wanted to be in my country in the beginning. I worked for 11 years in almost 40 odd countries. Always wanted to come back. And I never had thought in the beginning that I would be doing entrepreneurship. So I feel, there are events, there are things which you keep on doing, and something which you genuinely start to feel is something one should eventually keep on following. I have always said this, for example, if it is about this whole thing idea, I have said that I probably would not have done entrepreneurship prior to this and would not have thought of anything post to that also. So this was one thought which I developed over in my journey, that I realized there is a huge gap which I lived and felt myself for good 4-5 years in different countries. That I realized that, that gave me that confidence. Let's face it, it is difficult to sort of convince yourself to do something or starting up something where you have a career and things and all, and there are risks involved. Let's face that. How and what makes you do that? Like we were discussing some time back, it's a truth. Get something, if you genuinely feel that I can do, let's say, X, Y, Z, or you have something genuine in your mind, I always say, try, make up a small POC of that, try out your things, try to see if you are able to make a journey or if whatever you have the thought in mind, whether there is genuinely a need for that, first of all, whether there is a market that lies around for that, and then you do your basic initial pilots and see whether that is something that can work. There is no real formula once you try and find out how and what is your liking, and try to see if that is something test it out in the market and just go out for it. At the end of the day, final point is, if you really want to do something, do your maths right, but then keep the book aside and just take the plunge. And then realize what life is going to throw at you. One thing I'll always say, if you have good intentions and if you have good, and we can never lie to ourselves. We all know within how we are doing. Just if you feel it's right, then I think you always just listen to your heart, try out your thing. No heaven will fall. Always think what would be the worst that can happen. And you'll get your answers. It would be, let's say, opportunity loss of maybe 1 year salary or whatever, XYZ, whatever you think. But I think, it will already make your mind prepare for the best, but always think what can happen at the worst. Always hedge yourself and just move on in the market. That would be my thoughts, sir. I don't know if it was related to how we wanted to talk.
That they will tell us. What we would do is, instead of exhausting one person completely with all the questions, answers, we can do multiple rounds. Because we may get more questions from the points of one person, and then the others will face the same questions, and we'll try to make things tough for them so that they tell us how they face the tough situations in practice. One thing I would like to ask you, there is a sense of fear among many when they are studying. Should I get into a job or a startup? There are some people who are very markedly of one type or the other. They have no questions. The whole world will tell you, get into a job, but you have decided to do your own, you will not listen to anybody, or the vice versa. But do you think that a person, while deciding, need to understand that you can use the same ability parameters whether you are doing a startup or you're doing a job or not? That is, you could contribute in the same way in a job as well as in a startup, which means that if I have some fears of starting my own, but I have the ability and I do that very well in a job, I gain more confidence, or I may gain some opportunity there itself. The boss may say, let's start up a new thing separately. Huh?
So I would say, first of all, it's part of individual's journey. But if I have to give my own suggestion, I always feel one should think of first getting small bit of experience, understanding how corporates are working, or even some other startups, let's say a bit scaled startups are working, to first get a sense of the things, like, you get to understand some basic challenges. For example, even for me, this whole thing of idea of how and what can be done, it came after a discussion with my boss I think when I was in Singapore. That is when we discussed. Idea started from what can be done between France and India, because it was a French company I worked for. And then eventually, but I personally always feel that one can think of getting to learn few things, but then, that's not a formula that one can apply. Anyways, at the end of the day, if you feel that calling is in there, that you really want to also, just straight away start up with some ideas and all, that can be done. Again, as I said, always, there's nothing which is going aside. There is no big risk. Believe me, I remember in my 10th class, I've come from a very small city called Aligarh, and that too, even a very small town there. We were 40 people in class. All the 40 eventually became B.Tech students from some other college, and eventually everybody is doing something. I mean, it's not that there is some. So never feel that fear around. We all have crossed that stage. If we think of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, we probably all of us are at certain levels in. So I think keep the fear aside. Starting up in this point does not really, don't take it as if heavens will fall. And it is simply, if I have to advise, try getting some experience around you that can be even alongside your college studies. And then prepare yourself for the bigger things which eventually will come to you. I had never imagined 11 years back that I would be sitting and talking about startups. So, life would take you yourself. Just try to find the best possible thing which you align with. One thing also just I want to tell about here. So, 2019, I think December, was when I actually full-time came into Hair Originals. and thought of starting. And timing was very bad at that point because just March was when COVID started. And idea was, what we are doing today is not what we had planned initially. The idea was to do the US markets. That is where the bigger markets lie. And when we thought of starting, then COVID happened. So that disruptive ideas or, changing and all. And, for 1 minute, I was like, now what do I do in my life? I have left that also. And now I started something. That market, I don't know when it will open. But believe me, something does happen. I realize that there is a market here also. It's just about trying and fighting and, you will find out. So that is what I can actually say. So it's I think, get some experience around, even with wherever you find, and just take the plunge. It's no separate formula.
Great. We'll pass on to Nirmal.
Yeah.
So Nirmal, give us the answers without the questions.
Oh, my memory is that bad. but honestly, I wanted to answer the second question that you were posing. In fact, I don't know how many of you know, I really haven't started a company of my own. I've always worked with people who have started companies. I've had the good fortune of working with some of those very unlikely kind of entrepreneurs, right? Ritesh Agrawal started something at 17, 18 and went on to build something as big as Oyo. And Zoomcar was started by two Americans, white Americans, came to India and started a car rental startup. I always used to ask him, like, were you crazy? Were you mad? What happened? Why would you do this? Because it's a very difficult market. India is a very different market, very difficult market for an operating like that. So that is where I've learned from. I've seen people doing crazy stuff like that. I kind of learned that, there is no limit to ambition. Like what Ritesh did is pure ambition is what I see. And from Greg, I kind of learned perseverance. The company went through near death or death-like experiences at least 3 times over the 6 years that I worked with them. And again, he came back. I would really call that perseverance, right? These are the kinds of things that you learn from entrepreneurs. But at the same time, I've always considered that, you don't really need to be an entrepreneur. You don't need to start your own company to own, right? Ownership comes from within. And you can actually be an entrepreneur within the company also, which is what I tried to do. I mean, of course, I tried to start up a couple of times, did not start. But I really think that ownership that you display as a leader, as a part of a team, that really drives people around you, right? That is what actually makes things happen. It's not the smartest or the highest IQ people that make a difference. I have not seen that, at least in the places that I have worked in. Maybe there are places like research where it happens like that. But I think what I've seen is that in startups and in companies where you need to do Himalayan stuff, right? Big stuff. You actually, ownership is what matters. You bring a lot more ownership to the team, to the enterprise that you work with. I think you really make that place glow. Right? I think that is the answer that I have for that. Like, you don't really need to you didn't need a startup to be an entrepreneur. You actually need to work and you have to show that ownership. So we used to call something like, it used to be called owner, not employee, right? So that is the kind of attitude that you need to bring to work, really.
If you can talk a little more on that, because that's very important for everyone, including those who want to be entrepreneurs. Because entrepreneur just doesn't mean the owner of the company. He may be a foolish guy and will, spoil the career of many who joined him if he fails. But if this attitude that you're talking of, to be an entrepreneur even within somebody else's enterprise, if you can explain us a little more on that, I think this will be a very helpful thing for many. So sometimes I have seen some people, I could not start up, so I have to do a job. So that's a problem, that if I have to do a job, I'm second class. If I do a startup, I'm first class. But you're pointing to something very important there. If you can tell us a little more about it from your experience and how did you gain this insight, I think that could be very useful.
Yeah, honestly, okay, I'll just tell you a little more about how I was brought up, right? I was born in Kerala, born to government servants. They have had the same jobs throughout their lives, 30, 35 years, worked. In fact, my mom went to the same office for 35 years, right? So that is what I've seen. I've seen that, and I felt that is okay. And then later I went on to a business school. I saw people starting up. I saw even when I went to the business school, honestly, I did not even dream. I did not even think of going to a new age kind of a company. I actually went back to something which was very traditional, 200-year-old company, DuPont, right? That is where I went back after my MBA. And then it was very unsettling for me, to be honest, right? Those 3 years that I spent there, there was so much of ambition, so something that I wanted to do, I want to make things happen. It was just impossible, honestly, right? Because it's a 200-year-old company, there are set processes, you just can't change anything, and you try to rebel a bit, you're kind of considered that, it's not very well accepted many times in large companies. It's very difficult to change those. That is exactly when I started thinking of startups, and I'm from ISB, so in fact, it just happened that I met somebody at a movie theater, started talking about something, and that is how I joined OYO. I just told him that, the only reason I'll think of going back to Kerala is for something like tourism, etc. And he said, are you seriously interested in do something like that? That is how I started. And then, the whole point of entrepreneurs only make money, right? I don't think that is really true, because I believe that things like ESOPs and other things have made it possible for people to make money even being a part of a large enterprise. When you make changes, when you make real contributions to a company, you also have an opportunity to become rich with that, right? But entrepreneurship is not just about being rich, right? It's actually about, I'm sure all of us want to get rich, but I'm saying that maybe that is not the primary purpose many times. Many times the reason why you start doing things is not just to say, okay, I want to make a lot of money. It's more about impacting larger number of lives, bringing livelihoods to a lot of people, bringing prosperity to a lot of families. These are all things that's the kind of impact that you can kind of see. When you start owning the team that you work with, it's not about you're not leading them, you're actually, they call it the servant leadership, right? You're starting to facilitate a lot of people becoming better than themselves, right? They are growing while you're working with them. That is such a great experience. That is such an enriching experience, to be honest, when you see people achieving things while you're working with them. These are the kinds of things that drives you, right? When you see that, that is when you start owning a lot more of it. And it kind of drives you more. It's a virtuous cycle, honestly.
I think that's a very important thing. It's not important just for the people who don't do a startup but get into a job. But people who do a startup, how do they look at their team? And how much opportunity you give to your team to own up your parts. Hey, you go and do this today. You go and do this today. If there is no purpose behind this, you don't build a team. But if you build a team where you tell the person, okay, what do you want to do? I want to do this. Okay, go ahead. And then you train, you help, and then you let the person grow. So I think this is a very, one of the best takeaways of today is that you can be an entrepreneur with an enterprise owned by you or owned by somebody else. And in both cases, you can be an entrepreneur who facilitates the ownership of everybody, including yourself. Gone are the days when people would work only for one company. This was a value at one time. I joined this company when I was 20, and I retired from this company at the age 80. And even then my boss says, why do you want to go? Those were the values. Today, the best of your people, the highest paid of your people, your CEOs can leave and start something very small or just retire or whatever. Money is something most people are running after, but many people run away from money also. So disruption can come anywhere. So please remember what he said. This is one of the very important things. When you are in a indecision, should I start my own or should I get into a job? Keep this in mind that whatever I choose, I will do my best. I will own up my responsibility that this is mine. I'm not doing a job. This is mine. This is very important. So with that, let's move on to Akash.
No question.
questions need not be repeated.
No, sure.
The
Right. So, yeah. So, hi everyone. So, first of all, I would like to start with, are you all guys first year students or second year students? All first year students. And were you forced into this event? Was this part of the credits that courses you are doing, or are you here voluntarily? Sure.
were you told to say this?
Very much in sync. All of you guys here voluntarily on a Sunday, which is a big thing. If that's the case, I'm really honored and really pleased that this is happening. Even if it is the latter, I'm sure you would go from here and learn something. When Kshitij from your team kind of reached out on LinkedIn, he was like, we are having this event on RUPT, and we would like to invite you or something like this. I was surprised. I didn't know what RUPT meant. I had to really Google it up for 2 minutes and understand what RUPT stands for. So that's the difference between entrepreneurs and let's say people who have not started up something of their own. Every word I could relate to, rapid, transformative, or something like. I'm like, we see this every day happening, right? This is what we live for. So RUPT is happening in our startup since 6 years now. So this is happening, but I didn't really know the full form. And I think that's what also the difference is between the B schools graduates and people who don't do the MBA. So you are kind of probably better prepared in terms of some scenarios, some situations that you might end up facing in your lifetimes, which other people would really kind of go into and fail and kind of learn from. There are some very astonishing facts, right? Let's say from 2000s, the Fortune 500 companies, right? The top 500 global companies on the planet in the 2000s, guess how many of them are existent today? Less than 30% companies are actually existent today. 70% companies, the top 500 companies of the world, are non-existent. Why is that? Because I think what the theme of the event is really, right? The business environment is so dynamic, it's so transformative that if you don't evolve with time, if you're not constantly evolving, learning, changing your business models, learning with new technologies, learning with new ideas, you're basically going one step back. So it is very imperative that we learn and transform, keep transforming our business with new technologies, with new people, with new cultures, anything and everything, right? The average life cycle of a company in 1960s and 1970s used to be 35 years. It came down to around 20 years in 2000s, and today it is 15 years, right? So again, what this basically means is this keeps you humble, right? So we have been, for example, in business now for past 6 years. We started up in 2017. It's been 6 years, right? Some people, at certain events or at certain things, they call us successful. And I'm like, no, we are not successful because even the Fortune 500 companies are not successful. So, the definition of success is now completely altered. Nobody is successful and nobody is a failure. Someone who started up, is able to make money in 2 years. Somebody who started up, ran the company for 25 years and still ended up probably not making money for any of the shareholders, right? Or for themselves or, for anybody who is working with them. So the definition is changing, and that is very important that we keep changing with time. 90% of the startups fail. Right? And probably, restaurant industry, which is one of the most entrepreneurial friendly industry, right? A lot of people want to start their own restaurants, etc. In India, the mortality in the restaurant industry is 80%. Out of 100 restaurants that open up in Delhi, 80 of them will shut down next year. So it's not to scare away. Basically, the idea is that, the flexibility is one key, so which I would like to really emphasize on, which I feel as entrepreneur, you can just, put it at the very center core of your existence. I'll take my journey to kind of, help you guys probably visualize if that helps. 2017 is when we started, and this is my third venture. I had 2 failed, and I'm just a 2014 graduate, just 8 years, from graduation from IIT Delhi only. I started something of my own in 2015 by the name Delivery King. It was into last mile delivery services, didn't work well, hyper competition from giants like Delivery, etc. Shut down in 12 months. Lost 5-10 lakh rupees, whatever. started again soon after this, a company called Fiftood, which was into healthy fitness domain. Again, couldn't scale this up. Again, had to shut this down. Now, this time, I had learnings of 2 failed startups. And I was determined, this time, okay, I'll do something else. So what I thought of, visualize it as is, and also, one question that you asked, right? When there are a lot of questions when you are starting up in terms of financial securities, etc. I thought, okay, I have never done an MBA, right? Typically, let's say I would, and not to discourage from doing MBA, but typically, let's say I would spend around whatever, let's say 25 lakh rupees in doing my MBA, right? I said, okay, this is my corpus for the next 3 years. This much I had saved in whatever businesses, whatever jobs I had done till then. I said, okay, 15 lakhs, I calculated my expenses. Okay, this much rent, this much food, very minimalistic existence, right? Probably I will need around 4 lakhs of per annum amount for mere existence. This means 3 years. If I don't earn a penny, I will exist. And I wanted that comfort in my mind. I didn't want my mind to be disturbed by the fact that I'm not able to live because I don't have money. So when as soon as I crossed that 12 lakhs figure in my bank account, right, I just started. I said, okay, next 3 years, no matter what is happening, I'm not going to look back. 3 years down the line, if this fails, I have done an MBA. 3 years down the line, if this starts, it's a success, right? So I started with that. 2017, when we started, we wanted to be a one-stop platform for all the deliveries to the hotels, restaurants, etc. Kind of, a lot of startups like Udaan, Jammu Tales, etc. do this. 4 months into the journey, we realized that the quality issues were really coming up from a lot of hotels that we were supplying to. They were like, this quality is not good, this quality is not good. And this was, of course, not in the branded side of products. This was in products like rice, products like dal, products like, which are staple category products, which don't have large brands in them. So this made us think, okay, if we need to solve this problem, we can't continue doing this. We will have to really go deep into certain categories and solve for them. So we started going deep into certain categories like rice, pulses. The next 6 months, we just did this. We realized, again, in categories like rice, besan, suji, all of you know these staple category products, right? They still had certain organized level processing units, which were kind of, doing and giving the right set of qualities. But this was not happening in the dry fruits and nuts category. So we again pivoted. This was the third pivot that we were doing, which was now from all these staples, we even focused ourselves further into just one category, which was dry fruits and nuts. It was a large market. It was almost a $7-8 billion market when we were starting off, growing at a CAGR of, 15-20%. So the next thing is, we were just, okay, we'll solve for these categories. We'll pick up one product each by each. We'll pick up almonds, we'll pick up cashews, etc., raisins. We'll deep dive into the categories, solve for the qualities, procure the best qualities, and, give to different customers. Again, 2 years down the line, we had this problem when, some very major player, right, with large money came into this category and he was like, okay, I'll take all the people from this company and I'll make them work for myself and, we'll build this business up. And suddenly, and this was in COVID time, suddenly we were all, left in the lurch because we didn't know what next to do. From there, we thought, okay, we have built something which is very fundamental, which is the supply chain. Why don't we think about building a brand on the top of this, right? A consumer brand. And that was the fourth pivot which we did. From there, using our existing supply chain to kind of build a consumer brand, using the same manufacturing facilities, using the same procurement strengths that we had built up. And then we built a consumer brand, which today stands by the name Farmly. The company's name back then, in fact, the brand name back then was Technify Biz. If you kind of search Farmly, you'll find out that name also in the list. So then we, built on the consumer brand. The next 3 years, we have been building consumer brand. We are still pivoting. Every 6 months, there is a new thing which comes up. And we're like, for example, very recently what came up is, the healthy snacking, was kind of a very big buzzword. Everybody was wanting to get and eat something which was healthy. And for us, the dry fruits and nuts was just not kind of touching all the consumer points. So, we started a very new category and now our large focus is on building healthy snacking as a consumer category for our brand. So what I really mean by this is in the past 6 years, probably more than 7-8 pivots. And we are existent today because we did those pivots. So I think it's very imperative that, we keep learning from we should be very close to the customers we are working with. A lot of times we get swayed away with the competition doing something XYZ, but I think we should be close to competition, but we should be closer to our consumers. I think that's the 2 cents I wanted to give.
No, you have answered many other questions already, which we didn't ask. Thank you for that. And that's a lesson, that no business is constant. Even your success is not constant. But don't worry, even the failures are not constant. It is not that we fail once and we will not succeed again. And he's shown that very well in that. Let's move on to Vishnu, who brings us a very different kind of experiences, starting with designing drones and a software, now to a very different role of funding organizations and advising organizations and whatnot. A very rich experience, and we look forward to hearing from you, Vishnu. Please.
I guess questions have already all been laid out, so I'll see what I can answer now. But let me give you my perspective, right? I actually come from the psyche more of Nirmal here. I don't run a company today. I did try, and not maybe to the tune of success of some of my co-panelists, but I did try back in 2014-15. But let me give you my perspective, right, over the last, say, decade or so. I feel like every individual has their motives in life, right? And every 5 years or so, those motives evolve. But your core motives will always be there, right? And that motive can be money. In a lot of cases, it could be impact. And impact could be in terms of lives, in terms of a very deep problem statement that you personally relate to, and that's how a lot of entrepreneurs start as well. But all of those are motives, right? Whenever any of those motives, you want to create large outcome from those motives, large problem solving, large amount of money, you will have to be entrepreneurial in whatever you do, right? So whether it's starting out on your own, you're taking a job and you want to do something within that, whatever it is that your motive is and you want to drive it to large quantum, you will have to be entrepreneurial, right? So I think that's something that I've learned and I've tried to apply as much as possible, especially in the last, say, 4 to 5 years of my life. And it's been super helpful. And I'll take you through some of that journey. But each time you apply it, I define it as a cycle, right? And you'll go through a few cycles in your career over the next couple of decades. And I'm sure like that could be one extended cycle, which is each phase, like maybe what he mentioned, or something what Nirmal mentioned, right? Which is multiple cycles of a variety of fascinating business models. But each cycle will be compounding. So do take that long view and invest in yourself and be entrepreneurial in each of those cycles, right? The way it worked for me was, and since where y'all are at in your B school, I was also from ISB, like my co-panelists, and I always want to do, something on my own. So pre-ISB, I started out, did a bit of something in food tech. Back then, food was a buzzing category, right, with a bunch of food tech startups, and I love food. We raised some money, it didn't work out, and then I ended up at B school, right? My co-founder, by the way, still tried his hand at it, and today he's running a bunch of delivery kitchens, about 12 to 14 delivery kitchens. So he took a very different approach. But I went on, did B school, and after B school, I joined Razorpay. Razorpay was a much smaller company. We were 200 people. We were a Series B company. And really, I just joined as a generalist. I had no idea what my role was, neither did the founders, right? And they were just like, look, we need more people with us, and whatever is top of mind, we'll figure it out, do that, right? It's what people call strategy. It's really not that. It was biz ops, product ops, a bunch of other things. But I think what I tried to be is as entrepreneurial as I could, right? So whatever I picked up, I owned it. I figured out a way to make large impact with that. I think over the next 4 years, I was able to use every year as a fairly path-defining year for myself in terms of what outcomes were being created and what I was learning more than anything else, right? So over the next 5 years, I did strategy, corp dev, we acquired about 6-7 companies, deployed about $200 million in India and Southeast Asia, and did a bunch of things. But what I really realized is, if I look back, it's very serendipitous because now I think the things I can do in the next 5 years is stuff that I would never be able to look forward and predict, right? I can only connect the dots backwards. So today, as I stand, like I've also started a fund with my co-founders. So something that, the gentleman was mentioning that, maybe you'll start something else with your boss, right? So that's something I did about 1.5 years back. So we also run a small fund with the Razorpay founders, myself and someone else. So where I'm coming from is, I think that entrepreneurial spirit, if you hold in whatever you do, you'll figure out ways, right? Either directly starting on your own or starting it later in your life or just being the owner within a larger organization. And it can create large outcomes. ESOPs are distributed a lot more in the last, say, 5-10 years than in the previous 10. So that can create a lot of wealth. And I think you can also scale up pretty fast in a lot of these organizations. So that's my 2 cents on entrepreneurship, at least. The other way, which is starting out on your own, also you can do in multiple ways, right? Everyone doesn't need to be VC funded. You can start sustainable businesses. You can make profits from day zero. And there have been a lot of founders who've done that and created great impact and outcomes for themselves. And on the flip side, there have been companies like Razorpay and a lot of my co-panelists that has done the other way around as well, right? So there is no right or wrong answer. I think you have to figure it out over your cycles in life. So that's my 2 cents on entrepreneurship and at least what my journey has been like. On the part of disruption, right? I think in the last, say, 5 years, it's the testament to what disruption can look like, right? I think disruption has come from all parts of the world. There's been like absolute unpredictable stuff like COVID that's happened. There have been a bunch of regulatory things in India, right? Whether that's happening in gaming, in fintech, which no founder could predict, right? And so much money has come in, so many people have been hired, and all of that now stands to be disrupted, right? And then there is always emerging competition, right? Take any company, in any category, will have a competitor building out of their garage or wherever else, maybe the next incubator from this college, I don't know, right? But they can come and disrupt your business model. And that's happened with Netflix, that's happened with Vodafone back home in India, and that's happened with a bunch of companies. So I think today, as you all go into your worlds in your career, I think look at change and disruption positively, see opportunities of it. And I think the strongest, most resilient companies have been built out of the most difficult times, right? Whether it's the 2008 crisis or even pandemic or what follows from here on. So yeah, those are some answers to questions that I didn't fully hear, but yeah.
Vishnu, before we move on to the next round, as I said, we'll do multiple rounds instead of one. The 4 terms that come to my mind to remind you. One is to have good fundamentals in whatever you do. I would add to that good fundamentals of business and good fundamentals as human being. Core motives. What are your core motives? Where do you want to be? What is the path you want to take? Constant changes. Be prepared for them. Like he said, that most of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared. So what are we? Nowhere. We could be disrupting them. And to be entrepreneur in whatever you do. Before moving on, let's allow 2 questions on what has been said or whatever so far from the audience, and then we move forward. Yeah? You can stand up so everybody knows who is talking.
Hello. So he pointed out about the sustainable business models or sustainably how you can grow into the from the beginning itself. It is quite a bit new thing for me, and actually I have been following it for like last 5-6 years. How to make it sustainable, profitable growth. That is what I have been following. So can you please expand on that perspective about how can a startup be sustainable from the day one? Because generally those who have surplus try to be sustainable. But being sustainable from the beginning is something which I would like to understand.
Sure. I think maybe some of my Gujarati Marwadi friends in Bombay can explain this much better since they have been running businesses for the last couple of decades. But look, I think if you go back in time, right, think of trade, think of distribution. I think if you actually look at the largest business families in the country today, they all started in trade, right? They all had a trading business, which is typically you buying and selling and your margins being the float that you can generate. And as your intensity and scale increases, then you use that float to go backwards and start manufacturing, right? All of these businesses, even when they started from day zero, had to think of profits, right? Like they all have their khatas and they're trying to see their dhandas and seeing what is day zero profitability, right? So I think really that's how business started. I think what it's evolved is multiple models, and whatever model you take, it still has the same unit economics involved, right? It's just that the approach to it can change, right? The way you kind of think of building out. So pick up any business in any industry and you'll find enough and more examples of folks who have built it in both ways. And there's no wrong or right. I think there are enough failures in both and enough successes in both. I do think that even in technology, there are a variety of ways for you to build fundamental, strong businesses from day zero. In fact, I have a bunch of folks who have built out SaaS businesses slowly from day zero by selling to customers in the US, by getting large ARPUs, and generating profits, say, from the first quarter or so, right? Maybe not on the first day. So I do think that's very much possible. But I don't know if any of my other entrepreneurs on the panel want to answer that question.
I mean, pretty much in sync with what Vishnu said, and I mentioned the word good fundamentals in when I discussed. That's pretty much explains all about it. What I feel, it is also, there are two things to a business. I mean, first of all, how big you want to think, like your vision, or in a startup word we say market size, this, that, and all. The second thing is, how fundamentally in the beginning you want to make the good start, let's say. So see, when you are starting up, you need a very good team. You need some basic infrastructures. We all who have started up, we know, for first 2 years, I didn't take a single penny because there was none. It was all my money. So obviously, we all, when start up, we all become very humble, like Akash mentioned. So point is, it's not that you don't want to be profitable from day one. It's first of all the journey that you have decided. If you want to do a, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 40 crore business and do that and make it profitable. But then if you have a plan in mind, if you have your projection and you want to reach there, again, as I said, and fundamentals are good, which you, I assume, have figured out, and that's why you are into it. So that's sort of in our, and I always say, for example, if, like, there was a X salary I was earning when I was working with the Total, the French oil and gas major. And it was pretty good by God's grace. So, I always had in my mind that if I have to just get that as a part of thing, then there was no point doing all this thing. So point is, it has to be planned well. And if the fundamentals are good, if you have planned it, you have your Excels, although Excels don't tell all the truth, but at least a plan out of it. Then you pace your, innings basically accordingly. So it's into your hands. Yes, it's true that people have gone way too, let's say, flamboyant and all. But then if you see, eventually, whether it is investor, whoever, eventually wants to talk about what is your CM3, what is your this, margins, how the business is going to scale with certain, eventually sustainability. So I would just say it is more also about the vision that you have aligned. Because look, what people have built up, let's say, talk about whoever, the Tatas, Birlas and all, it has taken some time to reach to certain things. Now, if we have that aspiration of, let's say, 1,000 or 5,000 crore business in 4 years, 5 years, then you cannot do that right from day one. You need to make, it's actually pretty much of a choice of how you want to pace your innings. Whether you want to play like Sehwag or whether you want to go like a Rahul Dravid. But again, as I said, technique should always be good. You should know what you are doing.
So I have a little bit of my own experience. And since I've been an entrepreneur for many years before I joined academics, I think you must examine the value chain. Now in academics, we call it value chain. And see where exactly you are adding value. The second part is how prone you are to competitors entering early into that value chain. So of course, a very good example by Vishnu, which was about why trading prospered, and all the big business groups, they grew on trading. But today the ecosystem is very different. We are standing at an India where manufacturing is getting a lot of push. And hopefully, I think with technology coming in, manufacturing will become the basic startup. This is the hope, because all these businesses today, they've grown on that trading process, that trading platforms or trading, and then they have moved on to technology and to the value add. So value add, I guess, is one of the very important points, the vulnerability to competition in value add. Thought I'll just disrupt you all.
One more question? Yeah, sure. He raised his hand first. Okay, we'll give you a chance next.
Very good afternoon to all the panelists. So my question is that there's a new trend going around the globe that MBA graduates around the world are acquiring 100% of startups rather than founding one or going to work for one. So what are some challenges they might face running a company? Because as you know, a founder must know a company in and out, but that is not the case for someone who acquires one.
Yeah, so it's not just startup founders who acquire. It's, for example, I run 2 companies right now. Both of them are acquired companies. And trust me, companies can be like chalk and cheese, right? There's one company which is very high on ownership, very high on process, etc., but not really growing fast. Another one which is in the right kind of industry because it's really growing fast, but we have no processes, nothing said there. So I think the first thing that you should expect is that it's going to be, you're not really signing up for, you don't know the whole thing, right? You don't know what's going on inside. I'm sure there are hundreds of things that is done in terms of due diligence, etc. But there's only so much you will understand. So I've always realized that the first 6 months when you acquire and run something is all about setting the team up, setting up some processes up, and it's going to be a very difficult time. Sign up for that. Get ready for that. I think that is the most important thing. And this is not just any acquired companies. In fact, I've seen this in most of the roles, impactful roles that I've done. First 6 months is struggle. You just need to sign up for that. You just need to be ready. If you've got a spouse, you've got a family, you need to tell them that this is going to be life. Please be ready, right? Yeah, and when you start up, maybe you say that for 2 years, 3 years. In this case, you may have a little more luxury, and you say 6 months, 9 months. Don't expect me to come home on time. Don't expect me to have vacations. All that you should be ready. But I think that is the most critical piece also, right? That is when you set the pace for anything new. You are telling the team that this is how this new way of working is going to be. And yeah, some of them may not like it, but not everybody is cut out for everything, right? You'll always find that some of them will stay with you, some of them will leave, some of them you may have to let go, you may have to tell them that this doesn't work for you. All that's part of life. I think you should expect that. But that is exactly the reason. When you're signing up for something which you don't know about, you will make those bold choices. You have to be brave for that.
Sounds like arranged marriage.
And I think it's important. I think, by the way, the reason some of these models came up in the last 3 years is because money became pretty cheap, right? Global interest rates have dropped, money became cheap, and hence access to money became a lot easier. And hence there were models of roll-up, Thrasio, and like tens of them in India as well, right? And all over the world. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable for the next 10, 20 years, right? Capital is still going to be there, but the access of that capital will change, and it has already changed in the last 1.5 years. So I don't know if that's going to be the case of like MBA grads kind of going out and taking a lot of money easily and then acquiring companies. Yeah, so yeah, my 2 cents.
Good afternoon, panelists. So my name is Pranjal Agarwal. I want to ask, like we are experiencing a recession in the service industry especially. So so as an entrepreneur, we should view it as an opportunity or threat?
I think definitely an opportunity for sure. And for that matter, India at least is not yet in recession. But having said that, I mean, only the good businesses are still surviving. Good businesses are still flourishing. Like Vishnu was mentioning, the access to capital is slightly tougher compared to probably 2 years, 3 years, before. But capital for good companies is still there in abundance. So I think in India, thankfully we are living in a country where the consumption story is very different from the rest of the globe. So it's a very bullish consumption story and service industry story for that matter in the country. I think Vishnu can probably add more in this.
folks sitting in B schools in US are not going to be this excited at all. There it's really worse, right? So in India, really it's still a very optimistic, long opinion, right? In the minds of global investors, global money coming in, FDIs, which impacts a lot of what you're saying in services. So I do think actually it is an opportunity. Things might happen differently, right? So I think just comfort with that difference in the way you go about maybe getting a job or the way you go about defining a role and how you fit and what you do in that role. But all of these are opportunities, right? For you to try something different from, let's say, what the last 5 batches tried. Maybe 20% of the times, right? The other 80% will anyway be the same. So I do think it's a massive opportunity.
Come on board. And it's I have one line to add, and it's a very important line. If you're not an optimist, don't start up. Honestly.
I would add to that, if you're not an optimist, don't start up, yes, but then don't do a job also, because you can't do anything. Go home and sit there, if you can manage that. Yes, but I guess we need to face harsh realities, and if we can face some of the harsh realities here from the experienced people, it's easier than facing them in life, on ground, because you know such things happen.
I'll just give one example on this, because this is I also very passionately feel about. I was in Yemen. My boss, who was on that whole, the manager of that site, and it is way back in 2010. I was like 12 years younger, 24, whatever. So, every time I had a problem, and I was the whole, let's say, engineer for that site. So every time, obviously, I had so many things newer and could not understand. I used to go and ask, this happened, this well is not working, this, that, and all. So, one time he asked me, and I was like bothered about a lot of things. He said one thing to me, which I still tell to all the people when I, in a company. He told me one day that, are you the problem or are you part of the solution? And from that day, I sat down and I realized that I was only and only finding problem and asking him, tell me the solution. But from there on, I started thinking that if I have a problem in mind, I should also think what is the solution like. So this is one thing because it was a topic. I just wanted to share that.
I think that's an excellent learning, and we should use it in all aspects of our life. And with that, let's move on to the kind of next round. Jitendra, tell us, you shifted from a job at a pretty stable, nice, touring the world and all kinds of things, jobs, to a dangerous area, your startup. You got the funding and you're doing. How did you manage the change, if you had to manage something? And how are you managing, broadly speaking, your enterprise towards growth? What are the factors that you are using for growth, including the sustaining it? One thing is I start a business, keeps going. Other thing is it keeps growing, maybe in cycles or whatever.
So let me talk from like the journey part first. So I was working for a European company, so I would say, if priority of the life had been just pure, let's say wealth creation and comfort, I mean, that was pretty much there. However, I always used to feel in that, like, it was mentioned in very big companies, like DuPont, I think, or the example was taken and all. So for those companies where, it has been built since years and all and things, you are, let's say, a small fish in the big pond, if I can say so. That is how I used to feel about it. And I used to feel that, okay, life is good, but to be honest, if I exist, if I don't exist, it hardly matters for this company. That was how it was. And I used to tell them that after 6 o'clock, I just always look at my watch, कि अब घर जाते हैं, आज match आएगा. And after shifting and taking this whole plunge, certain thing changes. I was used to business classes, all of those and all, and then because you obviously have to now work out, like the savings part and all mentioned. So, obviously everything changes. You start with, we actually started from a basement and all of those things. So obviously in the beginning, that aspect definitely changes a lot. But again, it all depends also what are your priorities in life. I have always believed in one certain thing, that if you have, let's say, lesser material desires, then it always helps you to try out bigger things in life. That's my philosophy of life. Maybe because, all the experiences, whatever I have had in my life. So obviously that always held, and it was never, so that was something which never really bothered. But one thing what I really loved, and I even today say this to people, that, every day, I think it's 9:30 p.m. when I go home, and believe me, I still want to be there. And it is not here to tell to any audience. It's like you just are so much in love with what you are doing. This is what I really wanted to do. And this is something which is one of the biggest change I realized. Apart from that, talking about the growth part. So again, for example, we, as part of our business, first of all, I did a very good, I would say, research on my part. It took me years to decide what I'm going to do. It was 2016, 17, I was into, different countries. I did my whole analysis, research. I was not a 24-year-old boy, and I was like, already 10 years into the job and all. Took my own time, decided that, okay, this is one thing I really want to do. So I had done all my researches. I had spoken, in fact, just a couple of days back, I don't know, and it's relevant here. I wrote about on LinkedIn, normally I don't, the whole experience of how I entered into completely different market. But what my feeling was that I first of all checked out that this is a good fundamental business. I can work it out. I have done all of those things which would take years for people to come into. Like whatever, I understood and realized. After that, when I entered into it, obviously you mentioned like for about a profitable business and things sustainable. So I realized that this is something profitably can be generated, and did that. Then I realized the opportunity that how I can pace it up in a manner wherein we can do profits and we can scale also properly. And maybe all of those. So that is how I pretty much plan out, let's say, every next 3 to 6 months. And our idea is pretty much similar, as I always say to my investors and all in general also, that by nature of what I'm doing, it is profitable. I mean, again, unit economics level, whatever and all. It's because I really want to, I feel it is a global opportunity. I'm planning in this manner that I don't only think of profits only, but we also scale and reach out to that level. So it's more of a, I would say, balance between profitability, but with certain scale. So that's how we go about it. And God has been kind, I would say.
Nirmal, you bring us a very different experience. You've been into jobs, but at the same time, you have done what you say, owning up things and creating opportunities and scaling and all that. So from that perspective, if you can tell us how do you manage these two different roles, being in a job, but taking those big steps, owning up things and all that?
Maybe I don't know a different way, right? Because I think a lot of it is fundamentally what you are as a person many times, right? I mean, all of us, there's no right or wrong thing about it. We all have different ways of, we are passionate about different things in life. Some of us are, I'm sure, passionate about technology. Some of us are passionate about people, a lot of things. So maybe what I enjoy, at least, is to own things that I work on. Many times I feel, you're so much of a generalist that you can get into anything, but you can't really get deeper into everything, right? That's some problem that you have. But you'll also realize that that's a blessing in disguise at times. But you'll also find that you feel yourself wanting at times. So what I've always done is to work with people who are smarter than me. I'm not just making it up just to sound like what Jeff Bezos says. What I mean to say is that we all have our own ways. We are unique, right? There are some people who are way more smarter than you at different places. So I'm not very good at getting into specific details and getting deeper into it. I'm more of a breadth kind of a person. So I always work with people who are really more into detail so that we can work together and make things happen. I kind of work from a emotion kind of that kind of a way, a lot more softer kind of way. I actually work with people who are a lot more analytical and get into the detail of numbers, etc. It's not that I don't understand numbers. I understand numbers, but for example, you need somebody who can drive something specific for you. You need smarter people with you. So never underestimate the power of working with really good people, right? That is something that you'll always find is the most, for me, it's the superpower. You actually can get really good people to work with you. You solve half of your problems. And it's not very easy for a new company, by the way, right? It's always difficult to get good people to join you. You will not have enough money. For example, I was surprised when he asked the kind of question, right? How do you work by being profitable on day one? That is what business was always, right? It's just that it's only maybe in the last 10 years, 15 years that people have started thinking that you can make a lot of losses. And nothing wrong with either of the ways. But I'm saying that what happens is that made it a lot more easier for people to get, or for entrepreneurs to get smart people to join. Otherwise, it was a lot more difficult, right? Who would have wanted to join a startup maybe 2 decades back? It would have been very difficult to get smart people. But that's a lot more easier now because startups are a lot more sexier, right? So honestly, had I told my parents about wanting to join a 2-year-old company, OYO was 2-year-old when I joined, and DuPont was a 200-year-old company, they would have always told me, like, what are you trying to do, right? So that has changed. So which means that you get smart people to work with you. And that drives you again. Like you start thinking that, okay, the more you start working with people who are better than you, you also get better every day, right? So that I think is the most critical piece that I see. Like that is the way you can bring or build anything. You cannot really build something on your own. And many times when you're new in any role, and this is not when you're starting up alone, same thing, I told you about the 6 months that I have for the first the role, right? First 6 months, you're always feeling that, they call it the imposter syndrome. Essentially, you feel that you're an imposter, you're there, they're going to find you out soon, they'll throw you out. That's what I see. I mean, I really feel it. I'm not making it up. I always feel it. I feel that, okay, somehow I reach here. Now this is the last role. Somebody's going to find out that I'm stupid. They'll let me go. Right? So that kind of paranoia works for you. And you start building more into it. You start getting more deeper into it. Start spending more time. And that is how you kind of build again. Right? And maybe 2 years, I've always seen that 18 months, you start getting into your comfort zone. Then you kind of have to find a way of getting out of it. Otherwise, that's what I've seen. Every 18 months, if I don't change something that I've been doing, then I'm kind of stagnating. And again, that 6 months again starts. That's a pain. But I think that is how you grow. Otherwise, there's no way to grow. You can just remain there and stagnate forever. But yeah, the pain gives you that growth also.
Nirmal, I must thank you for that. What he means is that you need to disrupt yourself continuously. If you get into comfort zone, believe me, what he says is 100% truth. You start going down. Don't mistake this comfort zone with having money. I want a car, so in 1 year I could buy a car. Now I'm fine. This is a different thing. This is comfort zone about your work, your role in the work, your perspectives, your growth plans, and all that. Akash, I'll just come back to you a minute after him, because I have a different question for you. If you can please add your points on this.
Yeah, I think I actually agree a lot, right, with Nirmal, and I think I've seen it the same way, what you just defined, right, in terms of trying something new, being uncomfortable, then succeeding or failing, that's okay, and then resetting, right? I think that's what in today's world is experience, right? It's not really years. It's how frequently you're doing this. And the more you do this, is the more experience you'll get. And it doesn't matter whether it's been 5 or 10, but if you've done more of this within the 5, it may be worth more to you than if you did less of this within the 10. But coming back on my perspectives, I think 2 thoughts. One is, I think it's kind of important over the next couple of years for you folks to identify yourselves as individuals, right? And see what are the kind of people y'all are in terms of your strengths, your weaknesses, what do you like, what do you dislike, right? What gives you peace, what keeps you uncomfortable? And then try to, in some sense, apply that to how that could be your strength, right, in whatever you do. Because for me as well, and I think partly what Nirmal mentioned, I think it's important for you to figure out what setups you'll thrive in and what setups you won't, and try and see how you can pick those. For example, for me at least, I realized that I really want to be in a place where the people I'm working with, I'm always tested by them, but I'm also deeply trusted by them, and vice versa, right? So they're friends beyond being bosses or founders or peers, right, across the group. And that's how we operate, at least at Razorpay, and that's worked for me. And I'm not saying that it'll work for everyone. So I think it's important maybe to identify yourselves, map that to a little bit of how cultural setups are at orgs, and then kind of see where you'll thrive, right? And yeah, I think that'll take you a long way, because if you identify that, then you will keep adding on that and not maybe make wrong choices over the next 10 years whenever you make moves, whether that's to start out or join orgs. That's my 2 cents on top.
Thank you, Vishnu. Very, very important. And I think you people need to watch the video of this meeting a couple of times, because some of the points that they have mentioned are way more deeper than the words. And if you try to apply them even into your thinking, action comes after that, you will see a difference being generated within you. Akash, I would like to add a point to this question into your answer, is that how do you treat your 5,000 farming customers? What kind of relations you build with them, and why do you do that, and what difference it makes?
So this is a very business first question, but of course, I think in any business, the fundamentals, and it could be a tech business, it could be a product-based business, could be a service-based business, there would always be suppliers and there would always be customers. The suppliers could just vary in the kind, right? In a technology company, the suppliers could really be the developers. So from that perspective, I think our suppliers are our farmers. And the overall, the problem with the country's dry fruits and nut supply chain specifically was that we were not producing good quality of products. So it was very fundamental to the production. It was not manufacturing, it was not logistics, it was not distribution, it was production. And farmers grow, right? At the end of the day, these are all agri products. So in order to be able to have a consistent quality of products, because at the end of the day, we are a consumer brand. If let's say someone opens up a packet of cashews and the cashews are not good in taste, they will come back to us. And it is our prerogative that we are able to consistently meet the standards that we have set for ourselves in terms of the quality that we want to give to our consumers. So from that perspective, tying up with the set of farmers we are working with, the importers, the producers, all the different stakeholders we are working with, incentivizing them enough so that they are able to actually produce good quality, and they are also earning more money with respect to what they could otherwise earn in an open market. Because there are all, India has these large mandis where the farmers can go and sell their products, right? If let's say they are selling a 100 rupee product in the open mandis, we make sure that we buy at 102 rupees. We pay them 2 rupees extra, but that means that we are incentivizing them to produce better qualities. That's to answer that question. But I also wanted to add some point on the previous question that was kind of being added. Just on that point, I wanted to ask all of you, how many of you are actually thinking of doing something of your own after graduation? And it could be, genuinely who is feeling and wanting to do something of his own or her own. So let's say a handful of people, right? Around, let's say 8-10 people who are kind of, wanting to do something of their own. And I think for the rest of you, the journey that, both of these guys mentioned, which was, taking ownership in high stake roles in early stage growth startups, that's a very fundamental and, thing in your career sense. If you kind of go in that trajectory, you'll take ownership, you'll find better roles, and probably at a certain point, you might also find the confidence or the, motivation to start off something of your own. For the rest of you who really want to do something of your own, which is, let's say, the couple of handful of you, there is nothing that stops you from doing it, because what you need to really do is, list down those 5-6 points. If I to, who kind of raised their hands? If you could raise again. Okay, so let's say you, right? What is that one thing which you have in mind, which you feel is the biggest barrier to you starting up? So, okay, I think, and a lot of you would agree to this point, right? Financing the activities and how would I survive, etc. I think what you should again understand is that there is an opportunity cost to your own self, right? If you work 1 year without giving yourself any incentive, that's an opportunity cost. If you just remove that, because that part I am still saying is an experience that you will gain. So the experience also has its financial remuneration sort of a thing, right? Rest everything, like all the panelists mentioned, I think you just need to write down 5-6 different points and ensure that in this, so first is the sector, right? Which sector you want to start. The second is your co-founder. You want to start alone or you want to start with the co-founder. Third is, you want to bootstrap or you want to start with some fundraise. And fourth is probably, you want to start soon after or you want to start sometime later. I think once you have ticked off these 4 questions and the sector is identified and other things are identified, it's comparatively easy to find, also probably find some, some sort of capital in the market. But I would say as freshers, it is still comparatively tough. But you can always have some sort of freelancing that you can do that can keep generating some cash for yourself. It could be 2 hours, 3 hours in a day. It could be probably more than that. You could have some sort of trading business. You could have some sort of service business that can reap you cash from day zero. For example, our business for the first 2 years was bootstrapped. 2017 to 2019 and almost 3 years actually, we didn't raise a single penny. So, and we were in fact, rightly said, we were a trading business back then. So it was easier for us to transact and generate cash. So you can always have an alternative to generate cash if you really want to do that. So you can list down 5-6 activities, and happy to kind of speak to you guys offline as well. But all the barriers are really here, just here. If you can kind of cross those barriers in your mind, you will find out ways. Financing is in today's India's scenario probably one of the easiest things to kind of cross.
So let's move on to our next session, that is called Q&A formally. So our questions, your answers. No, your questions, our answers. Answers from them, please.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. So my question is to you, Jitendra sir. I follow Hair Originals since the Shark Tank, and I always had this question, and these seem to be a good opportunity to ask. You talked about having a strong fundamentals and conviction into the business. So but still there are competitions coming up, and with some or the other differentiation. In your case, niche hair, the founder has already an access to a large amount of your target audience. So how do you see that as a challenge, and how do you differentiate Hair Originals in terms of its core competency?
So I am first of all happy that people at least know this category now in India, which is very good. Our sales boosted up the day the people started learning about competition. So see, again, there are 2 ways to look at certain things. Obviously, as a business, you always would want to look at optimist, and I always say good fundamentals. I started this journey in 2017 with a mind of disrupting the global markets, US markets in particular. So I'll tell you, let's say, it's again maybe boring for others, but because you asked a specific question for the category. So basically, ideally speaking, this is a big opportunity in the American market. Just to give you an example, a product coming from India in this category is considered as Bugatti of hair extensions for them. So basically, for a global audience, a much bigger market size, a higher global perceived value of the product is built already. This is what we had come up into the market to do that. Like I mentioned, and obviously you do pivots or maybe, sometimes adjusting to the situation, which is the theme. We started in India, which we never wanted, first of all. Not for anything, but the bigger market is lying somewhere else. And that is what I stayed all around the world and got to know about this industry. That's the reason I'm doing it today. So the core fundamental and thing was that, you know, India has the raw material in the form of, you know, what is being donated in the temples, or I would say ethical sourcing happens only in India. All the processings are being done in China. From there, you know, the product being adulterated and all of that is going to the world. The whole idea of our business right from day one is that all of those technology in the manufacturings and all are being built here. We are able to send the top quality finished products to the world, and in a direct to consumer model, wherein a high value product, which it is already in and which is also bundled up in America. It's like a 3 product you already buy. So it's like a $500 sort of a AOV for this product, and bought every 6 months. So LTV is huge. So that basically was the whole idea, and that is the whole idea. But idea is to basically fill that gap of manufacturing the top quality finished products for the world. And again, it's weight of this product for $500 is 200 grams. So obviously, you know, all those logistics and all are very well taken care for a global supply chain also, distribution also and all. So that is the whole model. It is all about, you know, bringing technology. I mean, with all the engineering and all of those things, we always have one thing in mind, that we have to do, you know, work with technologies and all. With niche hair, like you mentioned, you know, I would say it's a very good validation of the marketing tool that should be taken, which is influencer marketing. So that is something which we already talk about. That is primarily in the beginning, we go for fundraisers and all of those, that we realize it is a category creation phase in this country currently. So obviously for that, currently content marketing, you know, awareness and influencer-led marketing, those are the things which really work. So with all due respect, that is mostly like, you know, like just on the marketing one side. Eventually, I mean, off the record, obviously, maybe we'll have similar things doing and things, all of those. So that is pretty much different market that we plan to operate, pretty much different strategy altogether. And then creating IPs in newer product, which has not ever been done yet. But obviously that would be once we reach to a certain scale and all. So that is basically the difference. Thank you.
While we can disrupt everything, we cannot disrupt the time. So the warning I got was only one more question. So anyone? Sure.
Good afternoon, panel. I just wanted to know what drives the funding decision of a startup, or whether we should go for a bootstrapping model or say fund from venture capitalists. Like, what are the parameters when you're starting up?
Sense, and then for the people who've actually raised it and not given it, which is the harder job. I would say, and I'll keep it short given the time limit, right? I'd say 2 broad factors, right? The first is, what is the surface area you want to cover as an entrepreneur, right? Because you'll have a problem statement, you'll have an industry, but what is the surface area, right? Is it like a very large problem statement? Is it a large number of people who face that problem today? Is it deep enough that there's that much money to be made, right? What is the size of the opportunity? So I think that's just one. And the second is, what is your time horizon, right, to go and achieve or spread yourself across that surface area. If it's a large surface area and your time is relative to that surface area lower, you might need capital to enhance your journey, right, or to be a catalyst in your journey, whether that's investing in getting your first customer, getting your first product, or getting to customers, or hiring your teams. That's when you'd need external funding. That's my 2 cents in short. You want to give your thoughts?
Just one point here, is the motivation for kind of running the business. Are you doing this to sell off? Are you doing this to run as a lifestyle business which keeps generating cash over the years? Are you doing it for some sort of, let's say for a very longer term where you really want to make it public or something like this? So I think your motivation also determines it. If it's a lifestyle business which you want to keep running and keep generating cash, I think, of course, venture capital is not the right format to go into, but for the rest too, probably yes.
And maybe just one example, right? So out of the companies that we've acquired, two of them were actually bootstrap companies, and founders owned 100%, and it was in the tune of say $10-ish million, which is large money, and they got all of it. There have also been companies where founders owned much lesser share, and it was much larger valuations and did not maybe make that much money, right? So really, it's your choice. What's the end outcome? How do you want to run your business, and what is it that you're trying to achieve?
One thing I want to say, because when I have spoken to some people, a lot of people have taken funding as, this whole question or thing as a very, I would say, you use the word sexy, as a sexy sort of concept. I would say one thing, I mean, again, see, idea is very simple. Why would a VC invest in you? Because if they're investing in you for, let's say, X amount, they are looking at least a 10 or 100X at a certain given time horizon. But point is, first of all, ask yourself this basic question: do you need the money for a certain level of POC, I mean, proof of concept you want to achieve, or whatever you have in mind? Because now when you are thinking, I don't know, but a lot of times, sometimes we are thinking of some idea just to get some idea. I first of all feel that's not the right way. First of all, are you really convinced, and have you tested it out? So you should think about a first level POC, and if possible, do it with your own money, or raise it from your friends, family and all. Build up a small case, convince yourself that someone in your family is ready to buy that concept and invest 100 rupees also in it. I think then you can think of external funding and all. That's
I would put it like this: if you are passionate about your ideas, if you really want to do only that, then start doing it with whatever you have. If your idea can come into market only with somebody else's money, most probably you are on the wrong side. Unless you have somebody else already standing with you. You are one of those luckiest people where somebody said, bring me an idea and I'll give you the money. Fine. That doesn't happen every day. So if you're passionate and you want to do it on your own, get down to proving it, and things will happen. So with that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you all very much. We couldn't, according to my standards, we couldn't do much interaction, but then the watch is still moving at its own speed. I wish somebody had slowed it. Somebody needs to disrupt that. I've been searching for a way to change the day from 24 hours to at least 96 hours. I'll be the co-founder with whoever does that. Thank you very much.
On behalf of everyone present here, I extend my sincere gratitude to the guest speakers, Mr. Jitendra Sharma, Mr. Nirmal NR, Mr. Akash Sharma, and Mr. Vishnu Acharya for taking out time from their busy schedules and sharing their thought-provoking insights from all of us. Post this session, we feel relatively more aware and equipped to understand the innovative practices in today's business environment. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank Mr. Sudhir Gandotra for consenting to be the moderator for the session and for making the session highly interactive. We would also like to thank Professor Nalin Jain for his constant support and valuable inputs. We would now request Mr. Sudhir to provide our speakers with a memento as a token of thanks in the following order: Mr. Jitendra Sharma, Mr. Nirmal NR, Mr. Akash Sharma, and Mr. Vishnu Acharya. We will now request Professor Nalin Jain to provide the memento to Sudhir sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude the Entrepreneurship Summit, and we are certain that the session has been very enlightening for each one of us. I would like to take this opportunity to commend all the speakers, our moderator, professors, and the staff of IMI for making this session an unparalleled success. We are honored to announce our esteemed partners and sponsors for Conventus 2023 at IMI New Delhi. Their support and collaboration have been instrumental in making this event a resounding success. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Phoenix Global, Recode Studios, RPSG, Fresca, Powergrid Corporation of India Limited, The Hindu, Easy Diner, Silgo Retail Limited, Orient Electrics, Business Standard, The Tarzan Way, Segal Doors, Safe Express, Bank of India, ICICI Bank, Adda 52, Madover Donuts, MS Shyam Stores, and Caplots.
The Entrepreneurship Cell is also grateful to the audience who has shown such great enthusiasm for our summit. Thank you all. Now we would like to request all the speakers, the organizing body and the student council to join us on the stage for a group photograph.
The 10, 12 odd people who said that they will do a startup, maybe they should put their ideas in a poster in the college, because rest of them may join you as